Crystal Tower information, Whiskey 21530 Zulu, wind 060 at 5.
076 Mike Juliet, this is departure radar contact.
Hazardous weather information from Minnesota available on flight service frequency.
You've dialed in the Flying Midwest podcast, connecting aviators from across America's heartland, sharing news, information, and events from around the region.
Calling Nancy 53 on Oak Tower, Roger, turn left heading 070, runway 9er, clear for takeoff.
Sit back, relax, and join our crew for some hangar talk as we discuss a wide variety of regional aviation topics.
Archer 71143 Flying Car, runway 28 left, quick takeoff, left hand southbound.
And now, from our home at the Anoka County Blaine Airport, our checklist is complete, and we're ready for departure for another episode of the Flying Midwest podcast.
Contact departure, every flight.
Welcome, everyone, to the Flying Midwest podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jim, and with me, as always, my co-host, Maddie.
Hello.
And the one and only Badger Pilot.
Hey, guys.
What just happened there?
Flag City.
That it depends. I was on mute to try and mute my coughing, and I tried to hit unmute just in time, and it did not work.
Whole production that no one else can see but us.
Yeah.
They'll hear it, though, because I'm going to leave all that in.
Perfect.
So, what have we been up to, folks?
I just finished Recurrent.
Good for you.
Whoa.
It was, aside from getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go do Sims at 5, it was relatively uneventful. It was not as bad as I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I remember you talking about it was going to be a busy week for you, so.
Yes, I was indeed busy. I was there the entire day, but It was not as bad as Initial. Initial was like being hit by a freight train. This was like being hit by like some guy on his bike, you know? Like it hurts, but it's like not that bad, you know?
Yeah. I was like, ooh, that stings a little bit.
Yeah. You might fall on your rear, but it's,
How about you, Badger? You, I saw a YouTube video of you this morning, and your face actually appears in it. You want to talk about that?
It does. Yeah. I put up my 2024 recap for I did the pilot, the plane, and the YouTube channel, and summarized the year and kind of set some goals for 2025. And yeah, I did kind of a selfie mode for the camera, something I had never done before, but I figured I would try it at the advice of the one and only Brian Turner. He said, you got to show your face. People come to your videos to watch you, and then they stay for everything else. So I asked him, like, you've seen my face before, right? Like, you sure people want to come for mine? And he assured me, just show your face. People are there for you. So I was my first attempt at it. I think the filming of it and the editing went fine. We'll see what the future brings as far as whether people actually like it or not. Who knows?
You need a 360 camera in that space. Then you get a nice.
I know I do. Yeah.
eBay.
I know.
My friend.
eBay. Yeah.
ooh, yeah.
I did order a third GoPro though. So
Oh boy, where's that going to go?
So that one's probably going to be the selfie one, and then I'll still have the overhead panel and then the wing view.
So you have one mounted on the wing, right?
It's not actually mounted on the wing.
Wing view as it's inside the aircraft pointed out to the wing?
Yeah, I like that view because I think people can relate to it. You know, they fly the airliner, they look out that tiny little window on the side, and they see the wing.
Yeah.
So
Fair point.
I don't know if there's any benefit or if that actually works, but in my mind, there you go.
And really, it's about making you happy, right?
Yeah.
So because this is the show where we talk about whatever we want, we sometimes go off of theme when we desire to. Jim, do you want to talk about the fires in California real quick?
I do. It's not Midwest, but I think we could take a moment to talk about it. It's huge news, and I think there's enough air assets there. I think we can talk about aviation and the California wildfires. The devastation that's happening out on the West Coast it's pretty remarkable. The Palisade fire specifically, I've mixed my levels of nerdery modes together between my aviation nerdery and I'm a student of emergency management, for lack of better terms. So I've been taking a peek at what's out there publicly for the emergency management side of things, how they're coming together with everything. they do these daily incident action plans, and you're able to take a look at those on the inner tubes if you know where to look. Like just today, I looked, and there's 44 air assets assigned to operations just for the daytime operations today.
That's crazy.
And I have the scanner app that I listen to sometimes. So I was monitoring like their main command channel and just the communication that takes place, even for, like, for example, there's a drone sighting tonight before we started recording. And the communication that takes place between that command channel to other command channels to air operations, just for one person flying a drone where they shouldn't within the operations area, was pretty interesting for me to listen to, at least, just to hear how all that comes together. So, yeah, it's been quite a thing out there. A lot of devastation, a lot of lessons to be learned, to put it nicely. But yeah, it's pretty incredible what's happening out there. The conditions were just right. The conditions out there are just right. I mean, they haven't had much rain, and it's just really dry. Plus, the Santa Ana winds start whipping through there. And I was looking at some forecast data for today. It was going to be blowing like 50 off of the mountains. So,
boy,
it is just all the right, like, trifecta from hell conditions to make that just a really bad dynamic for like wildland fires.
Yeah, I saw even on like the second night, I think it was, they had wind gusts that were forecast up to 100 miles an hour.
Yeah.
I think the reports ended up being peak gusts of about 80, which is just incredible.
So wild.
Yeah. And I saw a map recently, and this was, again, just on like the second or third night, of if the fires were in Milwaukee, how big would it be, just to give an idea. And again, this was only like the second night, and it covered pretty much all of Milwaukee.
Another thing I'll point out, for those of us that are in the Midwest and not as familiar with California and the landscape and where things are there, there's a YouTube channel that I follow just because I really like how he puts together like these really cool cinematic shots and just the concepts he's come up with. And that's Wolficorn. So it's like unicorn and wolf combined. I'm going to put a link for his Palisade before the fire video. It gives you an idea of where that space is located, and he uses some really good editing skills to kind of highlight where to like reference what parts are what for the fire. So it's really interesting. That's for like extra scraps from a video he did where he flew over LA at 10,000 feet, and he got some really, really cool cinematic type shots. So I just really like his stuff from that perspective. But this Palisades fire, he's out in California, so I'd imagine this hits him pretty close too. So it was a well put together video, and it's just really kind of a somber video to watch to see how like green and populated everything was before, and just to imagine that compared to the devastation that's happening now it's something.
And probably not our audience, but just an extra reminder: if you are out there, don't fly your drones, please, because of that one. I'm sure everybody's seen it with the Super Scooper, the Viking one. That got a big old hole punched in it. Glad it wasn't worse. But so if there is a TFR or anything, a natural disaster, let the people do their work, because that hindered the progress, which was really sad. But
I would double down on that and say, even if there's not a TFR, if there's wildland fire operations going on, even in Minnesota, which is the Midwest, I can talk about it because it is. I'm going to cut what I just said because that was stupid.
Nope, it's staying in there. I'm taking over the edit. It's staying in.
All right, it's staying in. Fine. Even in Minnesota, if we've got wildland fire operations, because there's grass fires or stuff like that going on in the summer months, if you have a drone up, that's going to hinder the air operations for those types of fires as well. Because even in the Midwest, if there is a wildland fire, there's likely going to be some kind of air operation with that as well. Whether it's going to be airborne spotting or helicopters with the Bambi buckets, as we call them up here, where you fill up and dump water on fires, that those exist even in the Midwest. So if there's that kind of situation where there's wildland fires or even any emergency management type of situation, just stay away. Let them do their thing, because chances are, if they don't have an air asset, they probably have a drone up. So deconflict that as much as we can and just let them do their thing and let them keep people safe.
I was just going to conclude the thought with saying thank you to everybody who participates in aerial firefighting. That is not an easy job. It is really dangerous, and it's crazy flying, and you guys work so hard. Thank you for what you do. Even if you do it not in California right now, I know there's a lot of crews from all around the country and from Canada doing that, but from wherever you are, if you do that kind of thing, thank you.
Yeah, same goes to those resources that are on the ground as well. I mean,
100%.
The one grouping I looked at today was like over 300 firefighters for one like division is what they call it. So that's
great.
Wow.
That in itself too is remarkable when you think about the area that they have to cover and property and people they have to protect. So
thanks, guys. Stay safe out there.
well, that's a sombering note to transition out of.
No freaking kidding. Well, should we keep it sad?
I can keep it sad.
We're really good at that.
Hold
Oh
on.
my god.
I bet my sad story is a lot faster. Hey, Jim, you want to hear something sad?
What's sad?
The Wisconsin article you sent me?
Yeah, it's in Spanish.
Yeah, it's in Spanish, and it says it's from the 24 de agosto de 2022, which means it's from August 24th of 2022. So I don't think it's news.
Good job, Jim.
See.
So
I don't.
that's the news from Wisconsin. On to you, Maddie.
I didn't think it was going to be in Spanish when I clicked on the art. I read the headline.
Should we still talk about the Air Wisconsin thing?
No, because it's from 2022.
No,
What was the Air
no,
Wisconsin
but
thing?
that's not the Air Wisconsin thing. About them their contract not being renewed for Americans.
Do we have that article somewhere?
No, I was going
It's
to
just
grab
happening.
Oh,
It's just
It hap-
happening, and it's
like 2
sad,
days ago.
so it works.
Okay.
it. It's happening and it's sad.
Okay. Well, how about this?
God.
While you look for that one, I'm going to read another sad article because that seems to be a theme that we're on.
Let's just be sad today, guys.
Yeah, I guess.
To live with
Okay.
that.
The sad Minnesota news is an airport that's known for being one of the very few United States-Canada border airports has closed for good. And when they say border airport for this one, they're not kidding. You could land in the United States and roll out into Canada and vice versa. The airport itself closed on December 27th, which oddly enough was a day before I wanted to fly there.
That is really sad. Oh my god.
7th through 26th.
Yeah, and we were talking before we hit the record button. This is an airport all three of us wanted to get to.
Yeah.
Just because it's so unique.
The long and short of it is that airport had some significant maintenance issues that would need to take place for it to continue to operate. So the agreement between Canada, Minnesota Department of Transportation was not renewed, as it would include just a tremendous amount of runway apron and terminal reconstruction that just was not feasible financially. So there are other airports that still serve that northern part of Minnesota, including War Road, Roseau, Stephen Municipal, and Warren, if you are in that area. A bit of the history on the airport is it was originally built in 1953. It was a grass runway and eventually paved over in 1978 and has operated until recently, ever since. It's one of 6 airports with a runway that straddles the border like this, but it's the only one that's actually paved. So sad to see an airport go. I guess I understand the reasoning behind it as far as just the significant upkeep that it would have taken to get it back into an operational state. Bummer we can't go there, though. I had intended to do a video for my YouTube channel of that airport. I thought it was just a really unique story, but I may still find a way to get up there and document that area without getting arrested.
You can still fly over it, even if you
I can
don't.
fly over it. I can then fly to Roseau and drive to it. I don't know what I can do when I get there, though.
Depends.
Probably take a picture from the road.
Probably. You could probably do that.
But if it's closed, I could probably just drive right on the runway, just go all crazy.
It depends on who owns it. And
if
also,
they haven't put a big X across it already.
Or a giant
no,
fence
what's that?
across the runway, across the border.
Yeah, there's a border fence going across the runway.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, though. If you want to see a video, and Jim, if you want to try and claim it on your own as your own, go for it. Steve Thorne from Flight Chops actually just released a video landing at this airport not too long ago, and kind of time corresponded it with the closing of the airport. So
Yeah, I gave him that idea. That's all mine. I'm going to take all credit for that.
Yep.
Even though he and I never discussed this principle or concept, I wasn't present when he filmed it or edited it or came up with actually publishing it when he did. But somehow I can take credit. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Fair
absolutely.
enough. I don't think he's going to agree with me, but
So we don't usually talk about airlines on this podcast because we're GA/hopeful charter people here. However, since it's regional specific, Air Wisconsin has made an announcement about their affiliation with American Airlines. So Air Wisconsin, if you don't know, for some reason, is a regional airline that is affiliated with several, I think all the different legacy airlines
Now, when you say for some reason, do you mean like for some reason it's in airlines or?
No, so for some reason you don't know.
Okay.
So there are a few regionals that are wholly owned, such as Piedmont and PSA, which are owned by American. And then there are other ones like Air Wisconsin or SkyWest that fly for those mainline carriers and do a bunch of different stuff. Now, in 2022, American announced that they would be partnering with Air Wisconsin for these regional things. But just a few days ago, they announced termination of that contract, I believe, in April. So it seems like Air Wisconsin is kind of redesigning things. They're changing their business model a little bit, and that didn't really jive with what American wanted. So American is going to then depend more on its wholly owned subsidiaries, and then Air Wisconsin is going to do their thing, which is two things. Federally funded essential air service market. So this is with small airports that aren't necessarily super like revenue generating, but are super essential. They're going to take over that because they have 60 CRJ 200s. And as much as people hate the CRJ 200s, hate flying them, hate, sitting in them, they are really good for these purposes because they only have 50 seats, which makes them very small, and they can get in places really easy, and they don't carry a lot of passengers. So they're pretty cheap to operate and maintain, although they are on the older side. And then they're also going to grow into more charter operations. So this article doesn't say a whole lot about it, but that's what those are their two goals. So it'll be sad to see them go so fast, but they've got their own thing going. So more power to them, I guess.
You guys remember that ATC audio? I think it was out of Philadelphia where the controller was trying to come up with a new name for Air Wisconsin.
No, I haven't heard that.
No, but
I'm going to have to find it and share it with you guys, but it was funny. There's some ridiculous names.
Change their call sign to Cheesehead or something.
Change their call sign from Air Wisconsin to something else.
That's super funny.
All right, we're going to go through the dog barking and just plow right on through to West Lafayette, Indiana, where a company called Uniform Sierra Aerospace has partnered with Atlanta-based company Flock Safety. Now, let's talk about Uniform Sierra for a little bit. They're based, like I said, out of West Lafayette and was founded by 3 alumni of Purdue University. And they specialize in drones, specifically indoor drones. And their main goal was from the start to create tactical drones so that law enforcement and public safety could search indoors more efficiently and more safely. Obviously, I think we can all agree it's safer to send a drone into a building than an officer when there's potentially an armed suspect or something like that inside. So even though Uniform Sierra has also developed outdoor drones, their specialty is in indoor searching through the use of drones. Flock Safety, which is based out of Atlanta, is on the forefront of law enforcement technology. They have things like license plate readers where they'll put a camera at an intersection and they can notify law enforcement if a car that's wanted for a robbery or something just went through that intersection and try and get officers to the area quickly. But they're also used for both hardware and software, not only with law enforcement, but school districts use it for their safety, and then businesses as well, just for security within their grounds. And Flock being a huge company, this is awesome for a Midwest organization, a Midwest company to join on and join forces, and should be a really nice boost to them. And along those lines, a spokesperson for Flock said that the entire Uniform Sierra team will join Flock's more than 1,000 employees and will be a part of the Flock Aviation division. So really cool step forward for a Midwest aviation company. Just 3 guys from Purdue making it happen.
All right, that's cool.
Super cool. So the U.S. Air Force needs 1,500 pilots per year, so they say. And due to this and training delays and everything, they are testing a new initial pilot training model to try and help these things along. Now, most of their training, some people come in with their private pilots already, some come even in with instrument. But generally, they need to go through an initial pilot training. Initial pilot training is generally the civilian, private pilot, instrument, and multi. At least it is for this. So this brand new idea is actually partnered with the North Dakota Aerospace Foundation. Actually, this program is the one in Arizona and not the one in North Dakota, which is kind of funny. And then another flight training program in Texas as well. But basically, what they're trying to do is get the private, instrument, and multi-engine done in 139 days, about 4.5 months, and log 110 hours in that time. After that, they will start in the Texan, which most of you are probably familiar with, the single-engine turboprop trainer for 57 flying hours and then 50 simulator hours in that. So that will take 4 months. So after that, they earn their military pilot wings and are able to go to a tanker or to a jet or something like that, or a fighter jet, something like that. So this training model will take about 10.5 months instead of the original 14 months plus 8-week initial training, and then a year-long undergraduate pilot training after that. So this is way, way, way faster. This is less than half the time before going to a specialized track, which is a big deal. That's going to, I think, move things along a lot faster because the time is now. They need pilots now. And, at first they've been hiring kind of slowly for those positions. But as threats around the world are growing, they need more pilots, and therefore they need a little bit of a faster way to do them. So they partnered with the North Dakota Aerospace Foundation and these others to do a civilian program portion. And they did it with 65 people through a 141 certified course for this initial pilot training. Seems like they did even better than expected and better than they even hoped. So it seems like this is going to continue, and it allows them to get these students to get civilian pilot training and make sure that they get that, which is helpful for them. So pretty cool. I think we're done with news. Where we're going, we don't need roads. Are you really going to get Bill to say that?
I don't know that I wrote that in there, did I?
It says, Bill says, where we're going, we don't need roads. Include Jetson's theme in post.
I don't remember that.
I'm going to highlight it for you so you see it. Actually, I'm just going to make it really, really big.
Where is it?
It's in it's after in the news. Oh my God, how obvious do I need to make it?
What notes are you in?
I'm in the wrong notes.
Damn it. You told me to stare where it was. God, I can't
I know I did.
Trust you boys.
I know. It's my fault.
Hold on a second. So
1118 Switchblade Flying Car is what we should be on.
Okay, because I'm on 112 show notes, and it's talking about another live Osh episode with Lauren.
Nope, get rid of that. Ignore it.
Which makes me wonder, was that 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
Would that explain why I'm looking at an article from 2022?
Oh my God!
Where are you?
Wait, hold on. No, because I clicked on the same article.
No, it's...
Yeah, you did.
I copy-pasted
the one
something.
In Spanish?
I
did, yeah.
The one in Espanol?
And then I read the Indiana Jones thing.
Okay.
I almost said the Indiana Jones story.
Here's what happened. I copy-pasted some closing notes into that show notes before we switched over to the other one.
Amazing.
It's a chance to clean that up. So that's what happened.
Yeah, the one with Lauren we did live at Osh 2 years ago.
Badger's been behind the whole time.
Sorry, Badger.
2 years behind.
It's like it really is Back to the Future. Okay.
But yeah, anyway, I just thought it was really funny.
Can we leave that whole thing in there? Just
the whole conversation. Yeah. You know what? Sure, why not? It's our show. We can do whatever we want.
Okay, so what?
Party, I can cry if I want.
Also staying in.
But it said that it was updated like minutes. Oh, that's okay. Yep, you already explained why. I get it.
I just explained why.
Yep. Okay.
It's like talking to my kids.
Oh,
all right. Where we're going, we don't need roads. I see it. Okay.
Yeah.
I want to circle back on something before we get into the main topic of the episode. We talked very briefly about, hey, you remember that one time when a Philadelphia controller was making fun of Air Wisconsin? I found some of the names that they used. Let's see. Some of the suggestions were Badger and Cheesehead. Swissconsin. I'm sure you do. Swissconsin was denied by the pilots. I think Cheesy with like an emphasis on the E portion. So Cheesy.
That's funny.
Nice.
Those are some of the ones that made it on the thing I just found. I think there were some more, but those are what I remember.
Enjoy.
If you have not, I don't expect any of you to, by the way, but if you have not noted my last podcast episode with Brian Turner, we're talking about a can of worms and a rabbit hole, and he goes, yeah, we should really look into this can of rabbits. Let's go down this can of rabbits. It was funny.
That's so funny.
Sorry. Should we get into the topic of this episode? We
probably should.
It's actually can of rabbits.
This can of rabbits. This is actually a really exciting can of rabbits.
Okay.
What do you mean? Okay, you were there for that. Wasn't it fun? It was exciting.
It was.
It was a good interview.
I think we all nerded out for a while.
We did.
Definitely.
Badger and I, after you left, we were just like...
Yep.
Just jaws dropped.
Yep, just watching videos and just spending money left and right.
Yeah, we were pretending to spend a lot of money. It was great. It was such a good time.
Well, on this episode, we're going to welcome Sam Bousfield from Switchblade, which is part of Samson Sky. You can check them out on samsonsky.com. What he's going to chat with us about is their flying car. So some of you remember Bill from my Bill and Jim's Excellent Air Venture minisode within a minisode. I told Bill about this, and he said to me, quote, "Where we're going, we don't need roads," and says we should include the Jetsons theme in post. I think that line came from Back to the Future, but we've somehow put the Jetsons and Back to the Future together, which is really interesting because we talked about Badger looking at show notes from 2 years ago, just a minute ago. So this is unintentionally all tied in. Anyway, we had a really cool interview with Sam about their Switchblade platform and how the flying car technology works. And I am not going to do the interview justice by just explaining it, so I think we should jump into it.
Let's go.
Is spoiler.
Well, welcome, Sam, and thank you so much for joining us here on the Flying Midwest podcast.
Well, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and take part of the Midwest again.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. This is something that we read an article on about several months ago. We ran into some of your folks at AirVenture, and I'm excited to get into this interview. So, but before we do that, we like to start every episode with what we call our Fast Five questions. It's just to kind of loosen us all up, break a little bit of the ice, and put you on the spot a little bit for some quick response questions. So, are you ready?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Question number 1. Favorite aviation movie?
Oh, it's got to be Top Gun 2, actually, the second
Top
one.
Gun. Okay, I was going to ask for the clarification. Yes. There a reason the second one over the first one? What are your thoughts?
I think it was... I guess I just like the characterizations more. I like how the story was developed and that scenery. I like the first one almost equally as good.
Question number 2 for you, sir. Somewhat aviation film related. Least favorite aviation character, could be TV or film.
I saw The Aviator, and I felt they really did not capture the main character with what they did it, how they did it. I kind of felt they did an injustice there.
We don't really hear much about that movie as far as people mentioning it within our Fast Five, so it's a unique answer. It's good. I like it.
Cool.
All right, question number 3. Favorite airport that you've been to? Now, this could be anything from your experiences going there, could be business travel, anything like that.
You know, I kind of like Hood River. It's north of here, against the Columbia River. Kind of challenging going into it because it's got mountains around it and hills and whatnot. But real pretty, gorgeous, nicely kept, and just a great place to drop down into.
Favorite moment in aviation history?
Ooh.
This is a new question. We haven't used this one before. So
Does space count?
I think it does.
Okay. I would have to say, I don't know when the last time I got more excited. When Musk recaptured that stage that landed on the chopsticks the other day, I was flabbergasted. I mean, I watched it 5-6 times. I could not believe. First, I did not believe that they would think to try to do that. And the second was, I didn't think they'd ever do it successfully. And to see it happen, it was like, whoa.
Yeah. Just the advancements there are incredible.
Yeah, it blew my mind.
All right, question number 5 on our final question in the Fast Five. If you could meet anyone in aviation, dead or alive, who would it be?
I actually would like to have spoken to Amelia Earhart. I think everything I've read, everything I've seen, it just points to a person I would have liked to have met.
Good answer. One person used that answer before and said that I just want to solve the mystery for everyone. If I meet Amelia, we'll be able to know what happened.
Good mystery. It sticks people's attention and makes them think about stuff. I think it's okay to be a mystery.
There you go. All right, well, Sam, thanks so much for playing along with our Fast 5 questions. I think we're ready to get into the main part of the interview.
Cool deal.
Take it away, Badger.
All right. So, Sam, could you tell us just a little bit about yourself, your background, and how you got into aviation in general?
I'm an architect of 26 years before I started on the aviation side of things. Began to do little inventions here and there towards the end. When you get, good at something, you can see how it could be improved. And so I did some inventions, and some were in construction, and some ended up being related to my passion, which is aviation. But I wasn't really trained in it, so I didn't really know, is it credible? And so I showed one of them to an engineer who was an aero engineer who was into that kind of stuff. And he got all excited. And then he took it to his friends. They got all excited. And they worked at Boeing, Long Beach facility. And next thing I know, they got permission of Boeing to work after hours. And I had those guys working for me from 2000 or 1999 to 2003. They wrote 3 scientific AIAA papers, American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics. And it was a big deal. I mean, Swedish government used the design to recalibrate the wind tunnel, the whole deal. It was kind of cool. So that was my first foray into aviation. And then it was like, well, what do I do? What does aviation really need? And when I looked at it, it just needed to be, to me, more useful, something you can use more often. And so that's when I started thinking about the Switchblade, since the future to me was always in the air. Future travel is in the air. And now we're mostly on the ground. So I thought, well, you're going to need something that does a little of both for a lot of years. And so I came up with the concept of the Switchblade, and it worked out.
So tell us a bit about what the Switchblade is, for those who might not be familiar.
Well, the Switchblade is a vehicle that both drives and flies, something you keep in your garage, if you wish. Throw your bags in, drive to the closest airport, push the button, 3 minutes later, you're ready to take off, fly directly to the airport closest to where you want to go in the end, and land there. Again, push button, 3 minutes later, you're driving the last few miles to wherever you want to be. So it takes you door to door. The bags never leave the car. And so they can't end up in Poughkeepsie when you went to Chicago, right? So that's what this is all about. And it's unique in this area because we set the bar high. We set the bar at high performance in both modes. Most people, when they think of a flying car, they talk about it. Their thought is that it is a mediocre, it has to be a mediocre plane and has to be a mediocre car because it's a combination, right? So how can you do anything but that? And that's been one of the biggest challenges because that's kind of like the thought, and you have to overcome that and say, no, we're not that way.
Yeah. So how did Switchblade come to be? Like, what were the motivations behind the development of this unique machine?
So when we first started, and I was thinking about a flying and driving vehicle, I asked the question, what's the best layout for that thing? That not how do you make a car fly? I asked the question, what's the best layout for a flying driving vehicle? And the answer was different than most people. They start off the other way and they end up with 4 wheels. I ended up with 3. And we looked at it from the viewpoint of performance. And realistically, I see that people will spend money on performance. They'll spend money on something that's of premium value, more so than like, I want to buy something mediocre or poor. And so we opted to just shoot for it and go for what people wanted. And that took a little bit of thinking. How do you get rid of the wings and tail on the ground? You don't want to have them hanging out there where they can get damaged. Sure. Because that would be a bad day. So we had to figure out how to get rid of the wings and tail on the ground, protect them. We had to figure out how not to do overturning, steering on the ground with 3 wheels, front single wheel is not as easy as it might seem. But it is if you know what you're doing. You keep center of gravity low and to the rear where the two wheels are. And that kind of dictated the start of the layout. And from then it was just how do you get CG there, place the engine a certain way, the wings had to be a certain place to be able to fly with that CG. And so the layout just kind of came together because it's what solved the question. And I think those are the main things that we did when we first came up with this plan, 2008, the first sketches.
I'd imagine you had to engineer the living daylights out of this thing.
Every way but Tuesday, I'm telling you. And it's funny, a flying car is different from designing an airplane or a car because you have to look at each kind of area or segment or circumstance, like suspension, and figure out what's the worst case because you're always designing a worst case.
Oh, sure.
So for a car, is it the worst case you hit a pothole going 70 miles an hour, or is the worst case a hard landing at an aircraft? And you have to figure out what are the forces, what are the ramifications of that, and then work those problems out.
What would you say so far? What has the biggest challenge been? Was it the suspension?
I think the biggest challenge of the Switchblade has been to make our targets for high performance. It had been easy to do it, much faster to do it if we'd have just accepted, okay, it can be mediocre, that's okay. But we started off with that benchmark, didn't want to give it up. And to achieve that, it took a little bit. I mean, even when we got up to the point of flying last year, we had met all expectations. We drove at 125 mile an hour plus on the ground. We beat everything in our wheelbase, distance between the front and rear wheels, in road and track slalom course. And they had four wheels, pro drivers, and he tested near empty weight. We tested three wheels, gross weight, max gross weight, and I was the driver. I'm good, but I'm not slow, right? So for us to beat them, I thought that was amazing. So a lot of things worked out really well. The flight testing worked out well. The aircraft flew well, but it didn't meet our top speed. It didn't meet the speed requirement in the air. And we were ready to go in production. That's what we were planning on. We'd already started production engineering. And we hit that brick, and I kind of went, oh, crud, what do you do now? And it took a couple of days to figure out, are we going to get there this way, or can we even get there, right? We didn't know for sure. But we did figure it out, and, then tested it and proved it out in the wind tunnel, Kirsten Wind Tunnel last May. And so, that's when we launched on the production vehicle because we made everything else. So we just incorporated what worked, put in the changes, now we're in production.
You talk about high performance. That sounds exciting, but what are some of those things? So what was that speed you were talking about?
We had a goal for 160 mile an hour cruise, and that was the minimum speed we accepted. That's where we said we have to meet that. So we had a top speed of 200 miles an hour. That would be like almost a never to exceed speed. But anything up to that, as far up as we could go would be what we'd accept on the high speed of things. Nobody really flies there, but it's kind of bragging points, right? So that's that. We wanted to go over 100 miles an hour on the ground. We beat that easily. The handling was an issue. We knew that people with a trike, there's been so much bad publicity on the early three-wheelers, off-road three-wheelers, people overturning those things left and right because they put the CG close to the front, right over the single wheel. It's just a stupid design. But we know that people have the idea that, oh my gosh, three-wheeler is bad, right? So we had to do something that we knew would challenge people in that thinking and prove it to beyond anyone's question. And so that's what we went for that and intentionally tried to overturn in our testing. Sometimes you go, well, how do you know it's not going to overturn? How do you know it's good? You can overturn any car, right? You go downhill, go really hard, hit the brakes, crank the wheel left. You'll flip. I mean, it's guaranteed. You're going to do it. But it takes a little bit to do that. You have to really make a lot of serious mistakes all in a row. With the Switchblade, we tried to actually overturn and we could not get it to overturn. We could barely get it to lift one wheel, the inside wheel, on hardest turns we could possibly do, but we could not get it to overturn. It would tend to go into what's called a drift, and it's designed to do that. It's designed to go into a drift around a corner before it would want to do an overturning.
Interesting.
That is super cool.
So you had to bring the weight back onto the two wheels for the ground handling. I imagine, though, that affects the flight characteristics once you're in the air, right? Because usually we think of an aft CG as a bad thing, especially like stall recovery. Can you talk about that a little bit?
So absolutely. When you move your CG aft, you then have to move aircraft center or the lift behind that. And so with that, we knew that then we had to put the wings at the very back. And since we're swinging the wings into the body, then that's the pivot point, and they swing forward between the front and rear wheels. So your wingspan is dictated really by the distance between the front and rear wheels. That's why we kind of have a long wheelbase. We're sticking the wings under there. And that puts the wings aft of CG, which is what you have to have.
And I can see after you describing that, I can picture it and see how you got the name Switchblade.
Yeah, right. We had a different name. It was Skybike earlier because we were really thinking of a motorcycle, 3 wheels, federally classed as a motorcycle. So we were thinking we could call it the Skybike, but unfortunately it got taken. I tried to trademark it, and it was just overseas. Somebody had grabbed it just months before I went.
Sure.
That's okay.
But that's okay.
Good name. Mm-hmm. Is it certified in the normal category, or how are you guys doing that? Is it experimental?
That was a key question, because we're not the first flying car. So other people have attempted it and they've failed. Nobody's made it commercially. Mm-hmm. So why is that? I don't want to waste my time and people's money chasing down a rabbit hole on a business case that doesn't work. Mm-hmm. So I tried to figure out why they failed, and it came down to serving two masters, right? You got the FAA on one side with a set of rules, which is tough to meet and locked. And then you've got the rest of the DOT, Department of Transportation, on the other side for the ground. Also for cars, they're just, it's a foot tall stack of regs. And they don't agree always, and they don't like to talk to one another. And so that was killing people. And so I went, okay, well, how can we win at this? And the only way I could see is you limit the regs of each side. And so we went for the experimental category because the regs are so small, almost non-existent. You have to meet 51%. And that freed up the aircraft regs to be whatever made sense, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the ground side, we kind of lucked out because 3 wheels, the solution we came up with, is classed as a motorcycle. Motorcycle regs are like an inch thick. It's really small compared to a car. Easy to meet. And we'll be one of the safest motorcycles out there as far as that goes, because we didn't just say, okay, what's the minimum we can do? We said, okay, well, what makes sense? Because people are enclosed. They're inside a vehicle that feels to them like a car. They're going to probably drive it like a car, thinking they're safe as a car. So you can't just, not have seat belts or no crash protection or anything like that. You've got to provide something. We incorporated that, even though we're not required to. We have rollover protection, which is a requirement for aircraft. We have front and rear crumple zones, and we have side intrusion protection. So all of those things are there because we decided it should be there, and we were able to do it. So we chose to do what we considered the right thing. So it was a development that came out of kind of solving the problem and then creating on it in a way that we not only produce a world-class vehicle, but we kind of set the standards for a new industry, or help create them anyway, and do it as a business that'll survive.
Sure.
Well, we may certify later, but it won't be very soon.
All right. So with 51% of it having to be essentially home built, for lack of better terms, I believe in doing our research beforehand, you guys have some sort of build assist program. Talk to us a bit about that.
The Samson Builder Assist program was based on how do we provide the best service and fastest service for the people that want a Switchblade, provide a safe vehicle, right? And still satisfy the intent and the wording of the 51% rule, which is, like you say, the owner has to participate and be involved with the 51% construction of their vehicle. Now, the FAA and their guidelines and their checklist, if you will, have it set up so that you have equal points for making a part or for assembling the part, right? Either one you get equal points for. Most builder assist programs have a person assemble the vehicle, and they don't have to build every rib or put every rib in place, but they have to put one or two. They have to learn how to do it. That's the purpose of it, and that's fine. In our case, since people can also make parts, and our parts making process, since we had so many people signing up for a Switchblade, great problem to have, right?
Right.
We had a lot of people who wanted Switchblades, and so we knew we had a volume that we could deal with, and we could do things that other aircraft makers couldn't do. And so we opted to shoot for a different way of making parts, and that involved computer-aided and computer-driven machinery to do that work. And it just so happened another group, I think it's Carbon Cub, pioneered this, and they have their builder assist program include pushing buttons and making sure that they have the right tube in there on an automated tube bender and cutter that they have. They have a tube and fabric plane mostly. And so the person goes up there for a week and makes all their tubes and then assists on how to weld it, but it gets mostly welded by pros. And then that still meets the 51% rule. It's been audited twice by the MITO up in Seattle, and we knew that was okay. And so when we did it, we figured, well, we could do the same thing. And so with the volume, we can set up and purchase the machines to be able to do that. And so a person comes in, spends a week or less going through station to station. They learn how to operate about 5 different basic machines, and then it's just basically keeping safe. They stay in the box. They come in, make sure the right mold's in there, push the right button, and it does its thing. They take the part out when it's done. They set it over in the automated trimming. Automated trimming scans it, goes, okay, that's part 53. Here's up here. There we go. The outline is done.
Oh, cool.
Here's all the holes drilled out by water jet. And so that's all done. And the person, they learned a new skill. They can operate these machines. They made their parts 51% complete after they do a little minor subassembly. And that's and they get bragging rights. They built their plane, right? So the rest of it is done on an assembly line with pro staff at Samson. And so we know the assembly's done in a really good fashion. It's hard to mess up with the computers running making of the part. So all in all, it's a pretty good system, I think, for making a really good build, keeping inside the 51% rule.
That's really cool.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. We're also using another component to this is that we're using a different type of method for making carbon fiber parts. Most people in a low volume side of things will use what's called epoxy. Two-part mix, goop goes on the cloth, put in there, bake it in an oven after you vacuum it down, and that's your part. And it takes, 9 hours to make a door. You might make a door panel. It's about 9 hours of work. Thermoplastic parts are more like heat and pressure, and so you can stamp it out like sheet metal, not quite as fast. But that 9-hour part of the door would be 20 minutes, maybe.
Wow.
In this process. Epoxy parts, they've got chemicals. A lot of people are allergic to it. It's kind of toxic to breathe. They got to wear the masks, suits. It's not an environmentally friendly material or process. And thermoplastic is really great. It's 100% recyclable. There's no waste. Any trimming goes off. It's over to another section where we make non-structural parts like a dashboard, and it gets all squeezed into a dashboard. So there's almost no waste, no fumes. It's not going out to the environment around us. So people around the factory aren't going to get sick because we're putting that out. And it's cheaper because you're faster. It goes quickly.
So while we're talking building, let's talk power plant a little bit. How does it operate on the ground? How does it transfer to operating in the air? Is it the same thing?
Yeah, the Switchblade is a bit unique that way too. Although more planes are being built this way, it's a hybrid electric. We call it Skybrid because it's specifically for a flying car. Because we have a gas engine that powers a generator, making power, and that power shifts over to either the props for the air or the wheels for the ground, right? So most of them do one or the other. We have to combine it. So we have a special system for doing that. It gives great acceleration. I mean, we'll probably 0 to 60 in less than 6 seconds. It solves two problems for us. One is getting an engine and having an engine stay in production for a while, since we're not Ford and we don't make our own engines or pay somebody to make engines for us. And we have to use a car-like engine because on the ground, they're not going to let us burn leaded gas, right? So no certified engine is going to work really. And none that would burn unleaded is powerful enough for what we do. So we had to go to a different source for engines. And that's one thing that we are worried about, is that if an engine goes out of production, we have to substitute a new engine. There's a lot of work that goes into a transmission for a flying car. You don't go find one on Amazon, right? They just don't make them. So we had to come up with that every time, and they're expensive, doggone things. It's hard to do.
So you mentioned 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. What's rotation speed? And that kind of leads into some of the other specs. Because if we're rotating at 60, let's say, 6 seconds is a pretty quick takeoff roll. So I guess that kind of leads into what's rotation speed, but then what can we expect? I know you talked about your goal marks for speeds, but what's a realistic cruise? What's a realistic both speed and distance are we looking for? Useful load?
On the takeoff, because you can accelerate with the wheels up to close to takeoff speed anyway. You don't want to be at takeoff speed on the wheels, but prior to that, takeoff speed of about 77 miles an hour, I think, in that range, 77 to 80. You'll be shutting off the wheels, firing up the props, and the props then can be set with their pitch for cruise and climb and not the takeoff. So you don't have so much compromise on your prop. We'll get a little bit of more speed on that, but I doubt we'll have much higher cruise speed than 160 miles an hour. The wind tunnel showed we should get that easily, and maybe we can go a little bit better. Sometimes you build something and the wind tunnel tells you one thing drag-wise, but in the real life, you've got door handles and things that weren't on the wind tunnel model, and so there's that other side of things you could have, some extra drag. But 160 mile an hour cruise, top speed above that, it was to be determined at this point. We'll see how fast we can go. Range is still 450 to 500 miles. We have 40 gallons of gas planned in the vehicle at this point.
So I'm intrigued by the whole process of, obviously, you're going to control it maybe differently when you're driving versus flying. So what do the controls look like for the operator or pilot?
Controls were, and still almost up to this time, been one of the bigger challenges to make it work out well for each side, because pilots are used to a certain thing. So are drivers, and they are different. So we operated to get it so that your gas pedal is the same as a car, and your brake is the same as a car, and your steering wheel is the same as a car. So you're driving, and the steering wheel is always connected to the front wheel. We tried to have the ailerons and elevators connected to the steering wheel, push-pull and whatnot, and it didn't work out. Test flight just proved that's not the way to go, because crosswind landings, sometimes the steering and what you want to do with ailerons are going to be at odds.
Sure.
And so we've switched. So right now we're doing a joystick or control stick in the center column, center between the two pilots, right? And that's for your normal flight controls. Rudder pedals are out left and right. And so your gas pedal is the right rudder pedal in the air, and it's a gas pedal on the ground. And the brake always stays the brake. So the brake is the same no matter what. You don't have tool brakes.
let's say I've got a Switchblade just parked in my garage. I want to drive to my local airport and take off and fly and then land somewhere else and drive to grandma's house. Can you walk me through what that whole process looks like? Is there a pre-flight? Do you need to do the pre-flight before you even drive? Do you do the pre-flight at the airport? From leaving the garage to getting to your destination, can you walk us through what that might look like?
The Switchblade, as you park in your car in the garage, is in car mode. It's ground mode. It's like a car. I mean, it's packaged in, fits in there into a garage, and easy to get access to, placing your bags in the front, if you have a front trunk. And so you drive it to the airport. From there, you'd enter the airport, get to a place, usually it's a run-up area or parking area or something like that that's clear. You're going to change modes. As soon as you push the button and the wings swing out, that's when looks like the insurance is going to say, no, you're a plane now, because you're changing from a car. You're not a car anymore. You're now a plane. The wings are coming out. And so you're responsible for safety in that sense. So you can interrupt that at any time. If you get going, swinging out, and all of a sudden you see somebody runs over where they shouldn't be, and that's going to be a problem. You hit the stop button, it stops right there, and then you tell it which way you want to go, back in or keep going out. So you're converting it by a push button, and it does go out. You'll have a little screen on the front there. The digital dash is used in change of modes to give you signals as to what's going on. So there's green lights for all the locks. You've got locks that have to, go in and drive home to lock and pin everything in place. And so you have to see the green lights there. There are going to be some. And once you got the green lights on the inside and everything looks good, you should be going through your outside checklist first. You do your walk around like you would in a normal plane, make sure everything is looking good. And then you get back into your interior stuff, and we'll do a checklist in the sequence that makes the most sense, so that you can be ready to take off and safe to take off once you complete that checklist, like a normal aircraft would. Then you go ahead and fly. It flies just like a regular plane, main wing, tail. You just fly it as you would a normal aircraft. And then when you do the landing, again, you get to a safe place. You taxi it with what you have out there on the airport with the wings out, and then come to a stop. And then you can hit the mode change button to change again, push button back to ground mode. At that point, you shouldn't have to do a walk around before you leave the airport. You could though, because there might be something you might want to spot, but you shouldn't have to. And then you just drive, and you drive it again like you drive a car, essentially.
I'm absolutely fascinated with this concept.
Could I budget in a flying car?
Right,
Well, when you think about it, I mean, if it's a primary mode of transportation, it's your everyday driver to and from work and the shopping mall and wherever, grocery store, and it just happens to also be an airplane, I think it could probably work. We're talking about flight training in this, but imagine this is the car you learn how to drive in too.
Oh my God.
What kind of flex would that be?
Oh, boy. Yeah. Well, I don't know. I had several kids come by that, they'll come with their dads or moms to the booth at AirVenture, and they'll look at it and say, Mom, can this be my first car? See that over and over. And the answer is usually no.
I was going to say, I can promise you right now, if my kid asks that, the answer is no.
Yeah.
How about you crash this 10 or 15-year-old car instead, just in case you got a fender better?
Yeah. Well, so it is pretty funny. One safety aspect that doesn't get talked about a lot is not specifically just because it's a Switchblade, because of what it is. It's because it's a flying car. And that's, most errors and accidents are caused with pilots going into inclement weather that they shouldn't be flying in, right? They're going someplace that they shouldn't be really flying in, and they get caught there, and accidents happen. Well, with a Switchblade, you don't have to feel the pressure of, I got to get to grandma's house for Thanksgiving. I mean, you fly along, and all of a sudden, I don't like that weather up ahead. You can just find the airport close to you, drop down ahead of getting there, drive underneath the front, go up the backside until it's decent again, and then take off and fly the rest of the way. So, I mean, it just really relieves a lot of the tension about where you're going to go.
Okay.
So is it sort of like a G3X where you can kind of change the panel modes? So you can go, like, you have your driving panel and then you have your flying panel and you can kind of customize it? Is that kind of how it is? Or how do you guys, if you can talk about it?
It's a secret. You got to look like it's a
I
secret.
can tell you. It's just funny. It's a whole workout on not only instruments, but where is it going to be? Because we have over 2,700 reservations in 50 countries around the world.
Wow.
A lot of those are right drive countries. And so we had to figure out a dash and controls that can be either right or left side. So that means putting the flying stuff in the middle between the two pilots, right?
Okay.
And to solve the problem of, like, it's over at the side, I got to look. We created an eyes forward display, what we call an eyes forward display. It's in front of the pilot and same data in front of the co-pilot in case, right drive or left drive. And it takes all the key data that you want to see when you're taking off or landing, right? The basic data that you really want to pay attention to in those critical times. It sticks you right there. So you just do eyes glance down and you're outside again. And that's how we handled that aspect of it. But it's in the middle for the moving map and all that kind of jazz. Okay. And those displays also allow for the ground. They'll convert to a monitor. You can put a video image on it. And so that's our backup.
So you mentioned, obviously, it's gonna be the best it can be. As far as production timelines, what can the average consumer expect at this time?
We're in a 2-year time scale to get into delivery of vehicles that I would say are consumer vehicles going out to consumers at that point. Okay. It'll be probably 18 months to build and test the 3 first vehicles, which are really test vehicles. Make sure we get it dialed in and make sure all the parts are good. We beat them up. We try and break them, right? And so we don't build 100 of them and then say, oh, sorry, pull them back in. We got to fix this, right? So we're trying to break them ahead of time, and that's really going to take just a little bit. It's not easy to get in production these days. There's a lot of issues with parts still and supply chain, but we are lining up a really good supply chain. I think that we'll do okay that way, and we'll probably take some things in-house that look a little iffy. And I think, that 2-year time frame seems pretty realistic. We do have a backlog. I would encourage people, if they're interested, jump on board quickly because it just gets longer and longer, right? Mm-hmm. So we'll ramp up as quickly as we can, as big as we can, as big as we need to. And, we'll meet the demand that shows up after we're in production.
So you have a car that is capable of taking off in 3 minutes or so, you said, for the conversion. I assume this is something where you still have to take off from an airport and not just the street in front of your house.
You do absolutely have to obey the same rules as any other aircraft, but that does allow you to take off from your own property, a neighbor's property that says yes to. You just have to be able on something that you can get up to takeoff speed or landing speed. That's the deal. You take off and land from airports. There's 5,000 public use airports. When you're flying commercially, they only fly commercially out of 300. So if you imagine, you've got 2,700 or 4,700 airports that you couldn't reach commercially that you can get to in a Switchblade. But you do have to obey the rules. I mean, you can land on any highways if you can do it safely in an emergency. If you're declared an emergency, you can land on the highway, and automobiles all the time see that happening and they get out of the way and do whatever they need to do to allow you to do it, knowing you're in trouble. But you won't be taking off again from there. But the nice thing is, if you do land and it's an emergency and you do happen to get it corrected, you can fold the wings back in and just
run away.
Try that with a Cessna.
Yeah, good luck.
So for those that are interested, what's the best way to learn more about the Switchblade and potentially even place an order?
We have a nice website. I encourage people to look at it, even if they're just for fun, right? And it's got videos, it's got pictures, it's got descriptions and specs and all the things you can imagine. Stories about the team, stories about our history, back articles. It's great. www, of course, samsonsky.com, SAMSONSKY.com. At the bottom of the page are there the links to our Facebook page, which you don't have to have a Facebook subscription to go. You just click on that. It takes you right to our page. Or YouTube, really big. We have a lot of video content that's quite cool. We've documented a lot and been open about who we are, what we're doing, and how we're doing it. And so a lot of that is available for people who are just interested in just the history of what has it been taken to get this thing done, right? And you can go and look at things, including first flight videos and whatnot like that. So that's where I go to get data. You can sign up for the newsletter there if you want. You can also sign up for get on the reservation list. No charge still for if you want to put in a reservation. If you want a fixed delivery position, like I'm assigned this slot, then you put in a $500 deposit, and that gets you that fixed delivery position.
I'm going to spend so much time on the video page of your website.
I know, I'm already on it.
I have a feeling I'm going to spend so much money. So I Googled Switchblade Flying Car, and I've been browsing it pretty much this whole interview. I want a red one. I want a red one.
Good. Red's our favorite color. It also looks good in champagne, but the new body version, if you've seen it, as any of the new images that we've released over the last, even just a couple of weeks, we started releasing the images that are like the final. This is what we're going in production with, and they came out really, really nice. I mean, it's going to look sexy as heck, no matter what you do. You can go Barbie pink. I don't care what you do. It's going to look sexy.
That would be so fun.
Maddie needs a Barbie pink one. We'll make it happen.
I was thinking white with, like, I don't know if you do custom paint jobs, but I hope you do. Like a cream color with champagne stripes. I think that would be really snazzy.
Yeah, I think so. I think that is really cool. That's a cool setup.
That would be pretty. Okay, so we have one last question. It is a tradition for all our guests. What is your aviation unpopular opinion?
I know most investors are enamored with vertical takeoff and landing vehicles. They just pour money into that area. I think that it's cool. I mean, when I looked at it, that's what I saw in the future, but I was thinking always more of a Jetson thing where it just levitates, right? Nothing really props. But still, something that vertical takeoff, the vertical takeoff and landing. I feel like there's a missing connection in that there needs to be a lot of landing places for these to be useful, like on a day-to-day basis. And that's really not been confronted. And also downtown, like I'm an architect and I know what it's like when you have big tall buildings next to each other. They channel air and create really unusual air currents where the tops of the buildings are, where you're going to have to land. The helicopters sometimes have a hard time with it. And I don't know that it's really fully confronted that these little guys are going to have a hard time in that environment. I sometimes feel like there's this missing thing that there's just saying that's the future and nothing else can exist, that's it. And I agree that's the future, totally got it. And I think that's really cool. But there is such a gradient approach to that needs to be promoted and allowed to even get there. But I think that we can help. I think that the Switchblade, by getting more people to feel comfortable in little planes and willing to be in them and talk it up. I was in a flying car the other day and boy, it was great. We got to do it. I think more people will go that route. And in the end, we will help pave the way for that. I'm not, it's like one of those things, I don't get any respect, right? I don't get Rodney Dangerfield. They don't give me no respect. But I think that's partly my bent and thought is that's probably unpopular because it bucks up against what's commonly out there.
We appear to have lost Badger.
Okay. Do we need to do that one again?
No. We can keep. We'll just. It'd be like he was never even gone in the recording. So.
Okay.
We joke with him regularly about his Wisconsin Walmart Wi-Fi, and every once in a while it just drops off. So it appears that he's lost everything.
I like Wisconsin. I think it's great. I love the area. I love the people.
Being in Minnesota, we have to have a border battle, him and I, pretty consistently. So, Sam, this has been really, really entertaining, and we've learned a whole lot about the Switchblade tonight. So I cannot thank you enough for your time. And if you're interested, we'd like to try to have you back on again to talk a little bit more about maybe some of the legislation and challenges that you may have faced.
Yeah, that'd be great. There's stories to tell along that line as well.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Sam, for joining us on this episode of the Flying Midwest podcast to talk to us all about the Switchblade, which I will apologize. I called the Sling Blade a few times, I think, as we talked about it before. And I may have also said Blade Runner as we were talking about making this episode. But it's for sure the Switchblade. So if anyone is interested in checking that out, it is samsonsky.com, and you can learn all about the Switchblade.
We had such a great time. We have a lot more questions for Sam, so hopefully he'll be kind enough to deal with our silliness again soon, hopefully. Ideally, their next big development, that would be kind of fun to have him on for. But yeah, overall, I think the Switchblade is a super cool thing. I totally poo-pooed it at first. I'm like, haha, flying car, silly, funny. Well, we don't want civilians flying. But after hearing exactly what went into it and all the cool features it had, not that I'm like a features gal, but it makes sense. It's like you can't even roll it over. Like, that's impressive actually for a vehicle. You can roll over an airplane. You can roll over a car, but you can't roll over the Switchblade. So I thought that was cool. And just all the different intricacies of designing of an operating vehicle like this was very cool.
All right, well, it says I'm supposed to ask you, Jim, who we have next, but I am just too excited, so I'm just going to announce it. I'm stealing your thunder because next time we have Paul frickin' Holt from the YouTube channel My Layover Life. I am super pumped about this. I had a blast talking to him. I love his YouTube channel, and when you told me we got him, I was giddy. So,
ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
I wasn't gonna say that. I was not alive. I don't think.
Similar excitement, proper expression, totally different set of circumstances.
Yeah, it was a really fun interview, though. He's a really fun guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, definitely.
He was really fun.
So,
yeah, who cares? Well, since you stole my thunder, I'm going to steal your next line. And I'm just going to bring us into the space of let's get into forget it. I'm not going to say any of this. Maddie, do you want to just start doing the thing?
Sure. Well, you guys, you know the drill. Like, subscribe, follow, give us a thumbs up on your desired platform. 5 stars, even. If you give us a 5-star review, we will read it. If you give us a 1-star review, we will read it. Join us on Discord. And if you really, really, really like what we do, please join us over there on Patreon. We have really low tiers. So if you're like, I only kind of like you, got $1 or 2 tiers. But if you really, really like what we do and you want to support us, we do have higher tiers as well. It really does make a difference for our well-being as a podcast.
It's what goes into making this possible for all the different things that we use to actually make this podcast. So it does cost money. I hate throwing that out there. But speaking of money, head over to our merch store and you can check out our line of merchandise for the Flying Midwest podcast. Check that out, flymidwest.com/merch. And I'm looking at some possible ideas for 2025. So we'll clean out the store likely when that happens. So if you want to get your piece of merch from the old stuff, jump on there now and go through those before we replace them with other stuff.
I may be designing some things. We shall see.
And speaking for ideas for 2025, I'm starting to think ahead and plan our next camping fly-in. So if anybody has any ideas, I've got a couple front runners right now, but I'm open to anything. And so we're starting to look ahead and plan the even better, if that's even possible, because last year was awesome, but the 2nd annual Flying Midwest Podcast Camping Fly-In. So email us, send us a message on Facebook, do what you got to do, get on the Discord, and let us know if you have a good idea for a place to do that.
You can reach out to us with any show topic ideas. We're going to start getting into more solo episodes. So if there's a topic that you want to hear, please email that to us, flyingmidwestpodcast@gmail.com, or any of our social medias. One of the ideas we got coming up is renting versus flying. Renting versus buying versus club versus partnership, etc., etc. Busy lift and drink, etc., etc. Nobody? All right, fine. Thank you all so much for joining us on this episode of the Flying Midwest Podcast. And until next time,
See ya.
see ya. See ya.
Flight 536, contact Minneapolis Center 132.35. Good day.
Thanks so much for joining us on the Flying Midwest Podcast. Until next time, podcast service terminated, squawk VFR, frequency change approved. Good day.
I'm told they're a great regional to work for.
You're told what?
Uh-oh.
That's good.
That part we got loud and clear.
Oh, yeah. We need a small video for just us of our rated R / NC-17 rated bloopers, because I know we have them.
I'd say we could put it on Patreon, but your mom's on there, so.
No! Oh, that would be so terrible.
I mean, Maddie would never be in those bloopers. It's just me and Badger.
Oh, that's not true.
In sad news, in Minnesota, an airport has closed. Apparently, they want me to give them money to read this article. I don't want to give you money.
All right, going to West Lafayette, Indiana, where a company called Uniform Sierra... Let's try that again. Sierra. All right, going to... Will my dog stop barking? Okay. You guys can hear it, right?
Yep.
I can't hear Jim, though. He's on...
Yes, for sure. I was using your push-to-talk option, and it didn't work.
Okay.
For our listeners, a couple episodes, Badger found this fancy feature where you could just hit the space bar. Sometimes it doesn't work.
I need to find a way to mute my dog. Okay. Here we go.
Insert a space bar.
And I'm sure there's one more thing in here I'm supposed to say.
It's bananas.
That is bananas. B-A-N-A-N-A-S.
That is the only way I know how to spell bananas now, by the way. I have to sing this song.
I was in a Part 107 drone class today, and they're like, what does mocha mean? And I just blurted it out, and I got it close, but still kind of wrong. But he's like, you know something, you're holding something back. I'm like, I'm an instrument-rated private pilot. He's like, there's always one in the class. I'm like, yeah, and look, it's 10 o'clock. I made it 2 hours without telling anybody.
That must be a world record right there. You should really call
Guinness Book.
World record.
You need to know.